as much as you can about the topic, and you can ask Jeremy some questions, ask us some questions, whatever's appropriate here. So let me just grab out my question.
Now, I can't see people asking questions right now. Is there some magical button I need to press to see that?
No, I think I have to make you a presenter or something. So I'll tell you what, I'll read them out anyways, and that way you'll hear them, and maybe we can see if that works, and if not, then I can always maybe see if I can make you a presenter or something. So,
sure.
So let's see. Joe says, as an OU admin but not a domain admin, I'm unfamiliar with the permission templates. Does that only apply to AD 2008 schema, or are they also available in 2003 schema? So I'm going to assume that Joe's talking about active templates in AA. Carolyn, you want to hit that?
Sure. So active templates is available in 2003 as well as 2008 as well as R2. Really builds on the native security that's part of the AD environments there with each release. So yeah, that is available with all of those platforms.
Okay, then George says he's a customer of Desktop Authority. He's considered active administrator. There's a little crossover in both products with regard to group policy. Is a recommendation not to use group policies option within DA if using active administrators? That's a good question. For those of you that don't have the context of the question, Desktop Authority has the ability to take the settings that are in group policy templates, the ADM files, and push those settings out using our patented validation logic technology instead of using group policies to do it. So, George, that's probably more a Desktop Authority question than it is an Active Directory question, in that I would tell you from a Desktop Authority perspective, if you could push everything out with one platform, you'd be better off doing it. That way you always know when you make a change to, let's say, who's going to be impacted by a slew of configuration settings, you know that those are incorporated as well, the group policy settings that that Desktop Authority can push out. So, if we're talking about active administrators' ability to manage group policies, what we're simply doing is trying to make sure that customers that are using group policies as one of their foremost methods of configuring the desktop have a more robust tool set by which to do it. So we're not really saying as a recommendation, don't use group policies in the DA, and we're not also recommending don't use group policies in Active Directory. What we're basically saying is we're trying to cater to both worlds depending on what the customer's true needs are. A couple people have asked, is the presentation being recorded and available for review later? Yes, it is. We'll have it on the Active Administrator product page at the bottom under the resources section. So you'll be able to see that later on. Let me go down to a couple more. Let's see here. Where audio, some other things. A lot of people made comments about, like, they were trying to piggyback on your statements, Jeremy. They were saying that's 2008 version 2 and so on and so forth. So that's not a question. Sorry, I'm trying to see here. Well, maybe this is for you, Jeremy. If we create a policy to stop pushing GPOs to machines, and if the machine which is in a work group moves to domain, what will happen? Boy, that sounds a lot like a train leaving San Francisco at 9 a.m. and there's a train at Chicago heading the exact opposite direction. What happens?
Well, the question is the answer to that question. Let me repeat the question back and try to rephrase it a little clean for everyone. Which is basically, if I've got GPOs and I'm affected by kill the control panel, like an edict like that, and I'm in the sales, whatever, and I jump to a work group and I rejoin some other domain, what's going to happen? Okay, for all the admin template stuff, in general, you will revert back. For things that are in the security section, most things will not revert back. The extreme example are things like, NTFS permissions. If you set an NTFS permission, man, that thing is just set. There's no way to unset that. No matter what you do, that sucker's set. So there are some middle ground things. Some things will be set and other things will revert back. But the two key takeaways basically are admin template things should jump back and revert, and security settings generally will be maintained. That is the general rule of thumb, not an always rule of thumb. I hope that answers the question sufficiently.
That sounds good. Jason asks, does Active Administrator have any feature that can help with the problem of knowing what access someone has on the network? Example, if you've assigned a bunch of permissions to a specific user and that user leaves, how are you supposed to know what they had permission to? I think the answer would lie in proactively using active templates. Wouldn't you agree, Carolyn?
Yeah, and you can also do some interactive browsing on the security tab to look and see what that user's configured with security-wise. So yes, if you're using active templates in conjunction with that, but you can also go in and view specific access as well. And that's actually also a problem that is solved in another product, Security Explorer, right? If you want to go out and search for permissions across the network, but that's really more outside the scope of AD as well.
Yeah, I agree. Amar asks, he said, I'd like to be able to audit where security groups have been used all over my network. Security groups are added to NTFS permissions on network directories. I want to be able to delete the security groups that are no longer being used, but I still have members in them. What are my options? So we have a tool for that. I don't know that we have a great answer. Carolyn, I'm kind of thinking partially Security Explorer showing where they've been assigned permissions, and maybe using the user-centric security and seeing, with the permission, a user-centric type of thing, seeing where the groups have been assigned, or is it maybe an ESR type thing where we could pull a report to see where they've been assigned permissions on servers?
Yeah, actually, either Security Explorer or ESR. ESR would be a good fit to show all the membership across the organization, right? Especially if you know that you have a vast environment with security configured. You can also do some interactive searching as well from within AA, right, for group memberships and to see the specific user and where those things are configured. But it's not going to show you across the domain, across all the individual servers and machines.
Okay, so Roger says, I have both books Jeremy rocks.
Well, Roger, I appreciate that, and if anybody else wants to possibly win a book, I'll review how you can win one. Thank you, Roger.
Yes.
Okay, way number one, follow me on Twitter, @Jeremy Moskowitz, all one word. I see a bunch of people have already done that, and you are all in the running. I see a bunch of people, like maybe 20 out of the 600 or something, already signed up to GP Answers. That's great. That means you have a 1 in 20 chance. I mean, look, you might as well jump in and join GP Answers if you haven't. The third way, again, if you already are a team member, just find any email I've ever sent you from the GP Answers newsletter list. Hit reply, and I will get it. Those are the 3 ways to win books today. So thank you, Roger. I appreciate that.
Very cool. Let's do this. I've still got some questions left, but when we go ahead and announce the winner, because there's people hanging on here in case I've got other work to do because we are a little bit past the hour. And then after I announce the winner, we're going to continue answering some questions here. So the winner of the netbook is Jason Miller from Oklahoma City.
Woohoo!
So yes, yay! So Jason, you're our winner. We'll be contacting you via email and get your netbook sent out to you. So the rest of you, you're still winners in our book, just not of a netbook. But you do have a chance still to win a copy of Jeremy's book. Is it autographed, by the way, Jeremy?
Hell yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure because that's important.
Yeah, it actually, it lowers the value on eBay because it's considered a damaged item.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
No,
all right, so let's see. A couple of other questions. Handy asks...
Yes, if people don't win books and they just want to buy them, they can buy signed copies from me as well.
Exactly. Cool. So Handy says, how about copying... Carolyn, I'll throw this to you. How about copying GPOs from one domain to another through our tool?
You can do a backup and restore of GPOs across domains.
Okay, so we got that. Thomas asked, and Thomas, I'm not sure this is entirely clear, but Thomas says you showed the ability to restore objects in AD with all the attributes. How far back can that restore go? I'm assuming the obvious answer, which is as far back as you've created backups for. I mean, what we're doing is we're creating our own backups. Carolyn, is it still scheduled once or twice daily, or can you schedule it whenever you want?
You can schedule it whenever you want. I mean, by default, it's scheduled once a day out of the box, but you can schedule it every hour, whatever works for your environment and whatever level of changes that you have. Okay.
Rob asks, does AA55 work with Windows Server 2003 as well? I think we answered that, but just to reiterate, the answer is yes. On a completely tangential note, Marcus, pigeons, I'm with you, buddy. It's an inside joke. You guys won't get it, but he gave me a little shout out. Ayush asked about the URL for the presentation. If you go to scriptlogic.com/AA, that's the Active Administrator product page. At the bottom is a resources section. In a couple of days, we'll have this posted there for you to look at. James asks, is Active Administrator domain level aware? In other words, if you upgrade your domain, will the product adapt to the features in the new structure? Carolyn?
Yes, you can even have mixed mode domain environments. It does not require, one specific level. It doesn't have to be all 2008 or all 2003.
All right. Reg asks, using AA, can you import GPOs created directly in AD and not created in AA? I think the answer there is, Reg, that Active Administrator, again, is just a console working on Active Directory. So if you've imported GPOs directly into Active Directory, we will see them, where we're just acting upon the Active Directory infrastructure you have.
Right. Nick, he might actually be thinking of adding to the repository as well, perhaps the Office Sandbox. And yeah, of course, those come from AD as well.
Chad asks, how does this compare with Active Role Server and Recovery Manager? Do you want to take that, Carolyn? You want me to take that?
You can go ahead. I'll chime in if you.
Okay. So Recovery Manager for Active Directory, think of that as a deep product. Recovery Manager takes every aspect of Active Directory, backs up and restores, and then caters to that kind of a mindset. I want everything that does everything. I want to be able to restore directly from tape, that sort of thing. Whereas Active Administrator is trying to provide sort of the 80-20 rule, the 80% of what you need on a daily basis, so to speak. With Active Role Server, you're not just providing the delegation, but you're also creating some of the workflow, the workspace in terms of the web interface that the junior admins are going to work within, and so on. Whereas with Active Administrator, the intent is that someone will use the native Active Directory users and computers to do the work, but we're just simply behind the scenes establishing the delegation of permissions in a consistent manner. Anne asks, can Active Administrator report on custom attribute changes that are added to the schema? I don't know the answer to that. Carolyn, do you know? I don't think we're going to see any kind of event entries for custom attribute changes to the schema itself.
We won't see that specifically, but we do allow you to to search for custom attributes and delegate permissions on that with active templates. So, trying to think this through, there may be a way to show some of those attributes in the reporting as well.
All right, so Jeremy, a question for you.
Hit me.
Yeah, protecting an OU from accidental deletion with 2008 or related tools, does this prevent deletion of child objects, or do you need to protect each individual object? Who has permissions to check, uncheck this permission?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I think the answer is if you try to whack the parent, I think that because you are unable to whack the parent, the children are automatically protected. I think that's the idea. But if you decided to, let's say you had sales and then e-sales and web sales, you decided not to protect those, like I said, I think they will be protected if you try to whack the parent. But you're not protected because as you created e-sales and web sales underneath sales, then you said I don't want to be protected. So you could individually whack e-sales and individually whack web sales. I'm pretty darn sure that'll work.
Okay. Julio asks, can the audit logs be stored in a separate server? Carolyn, why don't you talk a little bit about where our auditing stuff is actually stored? I think we really touched on that.
Okay, sure. So all the auditing information that's picked up from our audit agents is actually stored in a centralized database, really for reporting purposes and notifications. So yeah, that is stored on a separate server.
Scott asks, Carolyn, we didn't even touch on this. Scott says, we are a school district with different password complexity levels. We're using the Microsoft recommended structure for our domain and multiple OUs. Is there any way to apply different password lengths and complexity requirements to the OU instead of the domain?
Sure. If you're using 2008, there is a new feature for fine-grained password policies. If you've looked at that with Microsoft native tools, you will see that it is a multi-step manual process to set up. But in the new 5.5 beta that's out there, we actually introduce a UI to configure and set that stuff up. So you can set precedents, you can set all the rules and complexity levels there really easy in one easy-to-use screen. So that's a good question.
Yeah. Ryan asks, I'm not familiar with all the features of AA. Can you audit all domain logins from a central location, or it's for auditing changes of AD only? And the answer there, Ryan, is we'll get anyone that logs onto a DC, we get those logins because those go into the audit logs. But if you're talking about like a user logging in at their desktop, that kind of thing, we would tell you to take a look instead at Desktop Authority, which of course does a tremendous amount more than just auditing logins, but that's part of where that works. Amar asks, do you have a demo for Security Explorer or ESR? Because I mentioned both of those. Amar, if you go to scriptlogic.com/downloads, that has a listing of all of our products. You can navigate to Security Explorer and or Enterprise Security Reporter. That was ESR. Sorry about that. Enterprise Security Reporter. And there is a test drive link for both of those. You can take a look at those demos by basically playing with the products. You can also download 30-day evaluations of those products as well. So Anne comes back, it's more about her custom attributes. Is Active Administrator able to audit changes to custom, we already answered that, didn't we? We did answer that, was the same one, okay. Here, Jeremy, Brian says, I'm a 16-year network veteran, but I'm new to IT security. Help, please give me a book, smiley face.
Well, you know, we'll see. Again, I have a very scientific method for picking these things. It's a randomized, I close my eyes and I look at all the entries and stick my finger out, and I hope you win, my friend. But if you don't, honestly, if you're new to this stuff, even if you're a black belt at this stuff, look, I don't want to get too commercial here, but if you're serious about your group policy kung fu, check out my intensive group policy training workshop classes. I have them online and I have them live. So if you are in Nome, Alaska, which I will never go to, sorry, but if you're that far away and you want to, get some heavy-duty training, you can get it all online at my Group Policy Online University, or you can fly to LA in a couple months and I'll see you there in March.
Exactly. So Mike pipes in and says, this is back to the how long can backups be restored in AD. He says it's usually as long as the tombstone lifetime period. Carolyn, I'm adding this into sort of the question. With our backup and restores, if we're not going to use any of the tombstone information, can we still go back farther than that, and are there any limitations? Carolyn?
Sorry, I had you guys on mute.
I know, that's your big problem. Okay, no worries. That's the worst you ever do. That's not so bad.
It's okay. So if the item has been deleted, right, and it is in the tombstone state, we can reanimate it. I think it is 180 days now, but it is different on each OS.
And then can we, if the tombstone period is expired, can we still restore something?
If it hasn't been deleted.
Okay. Oscar says, how has Active Administrator stored its configuration data on an SQL database, MSDE, flat file? It's SQL as well. John asks, can 5.5 work in a virtual environment? And the answer is yes. What I was demonstrating actually was a virtual environment. It's running as a console. It's within the context of the OS, so it doesn't know nor care if it's in a virtual environment or not, so that's absolutely fine. And it looks like, Edward says that the history for WMI filter is also monitored, and I think the answer there is no. Is that correct, Carolyn?
What was the question?
Watching the history for WMI filter changes?
Oh, no, we don't honor that.
No. Okay. And I'm going to murder your name. I'm sorry. Ambrogino or Ambrogino? I'm sorry. But they're saying, Jeremy, I missed the requirements for being in the running for the free books. I am at GP Answers and I'm ready to register. Is there anything I need to do on the registration to reference the webinar or what? Thanks.
Nothing. Nope. Just do it. Well, I know that if you came in between 3 and 3:15 today, you're probably on the webinar, so I'll pick one of those people. The other way to do it is to follow me on Twitter at Jeremy Moskowitz, alloneword.com, and if you're an existing team member, then just reply to any email you've ever gotten from me.
That's easy enough. All right, I think we're done, everyone. Thank you so much for your attendance today. Jeremy, thank you for giving us some insight into some of the free stuff at Microsoft. Carolyn, thanks for your help as well and giving some insight in Active Administrator. Remember, everyone, that you get Active Administrator, get a 30-day evaluation at scriptlogic.com/activeadministrator or /AA, excuse me. And there's also a beta, currently a public beta of version 5.5, which is what I showed you today in the demonstrations. And then also remember that Jeremy's got gpanswers.com is providing workshops on group policies. You can also, of course, do the whole idea of getting the free copies of the books based on signing up for his newsletter or following him on Twitter. There's also an absolute ton of information. If you've never been there, there is a lot of information on group policies the newsletters, the downloads, and so on. So take a look at that site as well. So everyone, thanks for your attendance, and we'll see you at our next webinar.
Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you.
You guys.